Apparently, waking up to find your husband missing and your bank account mysteriously lighter isn't what marriage counselors mean by financial transparency. Tuesday morning, April 15th. I rolled over in bed expecting to find Mason hogging the blankets like usual, but got empty sheets instead. Not unusual. The man sold insurance and had the sleep schedule of a vampire who moonlights at IHOP. What was unusual? The Post-it note magnetized to our stainless steel fridge, written in his chicken scratch handwriting that always looked like a seismograph during an earthquake. Don't look for me until Wednesday. You'll understand everything. He'd clearly left sometime during the night. Monday night, most likely, while I'd been sleeping. Standing there in my ratty Northwestern sweatshirt at 6:47 a.m., holding cold coffee from yesterday, I had exactly 3 thoughts. 1. Mason's surprise sales conferences were getting weirder. 2. If this was some kind of early birthday surprise, I was filing for divorce anyway because my birthday wasn't until September. 3. Why did that note sound less like a romantic gesture and more like a hostage situation? I'm Camilla Lawson, 34 marketing coordinator for a telemedicine startup that pays just enough for Target runs and occasional Starbucks without guilt. Married to Mason for 7 years. The kind of marriage where you stop saying, "I love you" every morning, and start communicating through strategic post-it note placement and whose turn it is to take out the recycling. We lived in Moreno Valley, California, in one of those cookie-cutter suburban developments where every third house has the same floor plan and everyone pretends their lawn is better than their neighbor's. Mason sold insurance. Term life, whole life, the kind that makes people's eyes glaze over at dinner parties. He traveled constantly, or so he claimed. Riverside, San Diego, sometimes Vegas for conferences. I'd stopped asking questions years ago because, honestly, insurance sales sounded boring enough to be true. But that Tuesday, something felt off. Wrong. Like when you're watching a horror movie and the music gets all intense right before someone opens the bathroom door. I opened our Wells Fargo app, the one we'd promised to keep joint when we got married because couples who bank together stay together, or whatever nonsense we'd believed at 27. The balance made my stomach drop. We should have had around $8,200. We had $3,200. I scrolled through transactions with shaking hands, my coffee going cold on the granite counter. Weekly ATM withdrawals, $500 every Friday for the past 10 weeks, always at different locations. Temecula, San Diego, Riverside, never with a note explaining what they were for. $5,000, vanished like my husband. I called Mason, straight to voicemail. His cheerful recorded voice, "Hey, you've reached Mason Lawson, leave a message and I'll call you back faster than you can say liability coverage," made me want to throw my iPhone through our sliding glass door. I didn't. iPhones are expensive, and I was apparently $5,000 poorer than I'd thought. I called his office. Brenda, the receptionist who always sounded like she was chewing gum even when she wasn't, picked up on the 3rd ring. Atlas Insurance Solutions. How can I protect your future today? Hey Brenda, it's Camilla. Is Mason in? Pause. Gum chewing sounds. Mason? Honey, he called in sick yesterday. Said he had that stomach bug going around. Isn't he home? Yesterday. Monday. But Mason had been home Monday. I'd seen him that morning before work. He hadn't mentioned feeling sick, hadn't acted sick, had seemed perfectly normal, actually. Maybe even too normal. My blood went cold. Yeah, totally. Just wanted to see if he'd mentioned anything. About meetings or trips. Not to me. Want me to leave him a message? No. Thanks, Brenda. I hung up and stared at that stupid post-it note. The handwriting suddenly looked sinister, threatening. Like it was mocking me from the fridge door between our Costco grocery list and a coupon for oil changes. The rest of Tuesday was a blur of worst-case scenarios. I checked our credit cards. All normal, except for one charge at a Home Depot in San Diego 3 weeks ago that I definitely didn't make. I called Mason 17 more times. Voicemail. Voicemail? Voicemail. His cheerful insurance pitch started sounding like psychological torture. I didn't call the police. What was I supposed to say? My husband left a weird note and withdrew some cash? They'd laugh me out of the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. Plus, some stupid part of me still thought maybe, this was some elaborate surprise. Maybe the withdrawals were for a trip to Napa or a down payment on the boat he'd always talked about. Spoiler alert, I was adorably naive. I didn't sleep that night. Just lay there in our king-sized bed from Ashley Furniture, the one we'd spent 3 hours picking out because Mason insisted on medium firm with cooling technology, staring at the ceiling fan, listening to every car that drove past our house, waiting for his Dodge Ram to pull into the driveway. It never did. Wednesday morning, April 16th, 9:03 a.m. I was on my second cup of coffee, wearing the same Northwestern sweatshirt because showering felt impossible, scrolling through Mason's Instagram for the 40th time looking for clues. His last post was from 2 weeks ago, a sunset photo from client dinner in San Diego, with the caption, "Blessed to help families protect their futures." The doorbell rang. I shuffled to the front door in my slippers, the fuzzy ones shaped like bear paws that Mason had bought me last Christmas, expecting Amazon delivery or maybe Jehovah's Witnesses. I opened the door. 2 men in plain clothes, detective badges clipped to their belts. The older one, salt and pepper hair, tired eyes, looked like he'd seen every bad decision humanity could make. The younger one, probably late 20s, had that eager rookie energy that meant he still believed in justice. Mrs. Lawson? Mrs. Camilla Lawson? My heart stopped. Started again. Stopped again. Yes? I'm Detective Ramirez. This is Detective Foster. Riverside County Sheriff's Department. We need to talk to you about your husband, Mason Lawson. The world tilted. Did something happen? Is he hurt? Detective Ramirez's expression didn't change. Ma'am, your husband was arrested last night at approximately 11:47 p.m. attempting to cross the border into Tijuana. He's currently being held at the Metropolitan Detention Center downtown. I blinked. I'm sorry, what? We need you to come down to the station to answer some questions. It's regarding multiple counts of real estate loan fraud, identity theft, and... Detective Foster checked his notes like he couldn't quite believe what he was reading. Bigamy. The word hung in the air between us like a dead fish. Bigamy. As in, 2 wives. As in my husband, Mason, let me explain your deductible Lawson, had another wife somewhere? I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because my brain had officially short-circuited and laughter was the only response it could produce. You're joking. Ma'am, I assure you this is not a joke. We need you to come with us. And that's how I ended up in the back of an unmarked police car at 9:17 on a Wednesday morning, still wearing my bear paw slippers, heading downtown to discover that my husband's insurance sales trips were actually research expeditions for his second family. Turns out, Till Death Do Us Part has a pretty significant loophole when your spouse is busy being married to someone else. The Riverside County Sheriff's Department smelled like burnt coffee, anxiety, and poor life choices. Mostly mine. Detective Ramirez led me through a maze of beige hallways that all looked identical, past offices where other detectives typed reports and argued about lunch orders. I was still wearing those ridiculous bear paw slippers. My Northwestern sweatshirt had a coffee stain on the sleeve. I looked like someone who'd given up on life, which, honestly, pretty accurate assessment. They deposited me in interview room 3, gray walls, metal table, those uncomfortable plastic chairs that every government building seems to buy in bulk from the same depressing catalog. Detective Foster offered me water in a paper cup. I took it because my mouth felt like I'd been chewing sand. Mrs. Lawson, we need to ask you some questions about your husband's financial activities over the past 2 years. 2 years? My voice came out squeaky. Panicked. What are you talking about? Detective Ramirez pulled out a folder thick enough to stop a bullet. Your husband, Mason Lawson, has been involved in a real estate loan fraud scheme involving 3 properties across Southern California. We're trying to determine your level of involvement. My level of, I didn't do anything. I didn't even know he was arrested until you showed up at my door. You're listed as a co-owner on the property at 2847 Sycamore Drive in Moreno Valley. Your primary residence. Yeah, because we're married. That's how mortgages work. Detective Foster leaned forward, playing good cop. Mrs. Lawson, we're not accusing you of anything. We just need to understand the full scope of your husband's activities. When did he purchase the property in Temecula? I stared at him. What property in Temecula? They exchanged glances. The kind of glances that meant they were deciding whether I was genuinely clueless or an Oscar-worthy actress. Detective Ramirez slid a paper across the table. Property deed, 2400 Winchester Road, Unit 156, Temecula, California. Purchased 18 months ago, in Mason's name. I've never seen this address in my life, I said slowly. Mason never mentioned buying property in Temecula. Why would he? We already have a house. What about the condo in San Diego? My brain was melting. What condo in San Diego? Another paper. 4892 Pacific Beach Drive, Unit 12. Purchased 14 months ago. Also in Mason's name. Or rather, I squinted at the signature, Jason Caldwell's name. Who the heck is Jason Caldwell? We were hoping you could tell us. Detective Ramirez's expression suggested he'd heard every excuse humanity could invent. The signature matches your husband's handwriting. He's been using this identity for approximately 6 years. 6 years. We'd been married for 7, which meant Mason had been someone else, somewhere else, for almost our entire marriage. I was processing this information the way a computer processes a virus, slowly, with lots of error messages, when there was a knock on the door. A female officer poked her head in. Ramirez? The other one's here. The other what? I asked. Detective Ramirez stood. Mrs. Lawson, I need you to wait here for a moment. They left. I sat there in interview room 3, staring at property deeds for homes I'd never seen, trying to understand how my husband had apparently been living a double life that made him either a criminal mastermind or the world's stupidest fraud artist. The jury was still out. 10 minutes passed. Felt like 10 years. The door opened. A woman walked in. She was about my height. 5'6". Brown hair, same length as mine, styled in that effortless way that actually takes 45 minutes and 3 different products. She wore scrubs, the kind with cartoon teeth on them that dental hygienists wear to seem friendly while they lecture you about flossing. She carried an expensive-looking Kate Spade purse. Her face was pale, shocked, exhausted. She looked at me. I looked at her. We were wearing the same nude nail polish. It was the Spider-Man pointing meme, live-action edition. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me," she said. Her voice was hoarse, like she'd been crying. Or screaming. Possibly both. She collapsed into the chair across from me, dropped her purse on the table, and put her head in her hands. "Let me guess," she said without looking up. "He told you he was an insurance salesman who traveled a lot for work?" My throat closed. "How did you—" Because he told me the exact same story. She lifted her head. Her eyes were red-rimmed, makeup smudged. "I'm Karina. I kept my maiden name, Beckett, but legally I'm Karina Caldwell. I'm his wife. Or I thought I was." The room spun. "You can't be his wife," I said stupidly. "I'm his wife." "Yeah. Well, apparently we're both wrong." She laughed, but it sounded like glass breaking. "Or we're both right? I haven't decided which option makes me feel less idiotic." Detective Ramirez and Foster filed back in, looking like this was the most entertaining thing that had happened all week. Probably was. Detective Ramirez cleared his throat. "Mrs. Lawson, Ms. Beckett." "Mrs. Caldwell, technically," Karina interrupted bitterly. "According to my marriage certificate from Vegas 6 years ago, Jason Caldwell, Little Chapel of Love, should have been my first red flag because who names a wedding venue like it's a porn title?" I was having trouble breathing. 6 years? We've been married for 7. Congratulations, you win the Who Got Conned first prize. Karina's voice dripped sarcasm. "What's your prize?" "Oh, right. Shared trauma and financial ruin." Detective Ramirez spread more papers across the table. Bank statements, loan applications, credit reports. Mr. Lawson, or Mr. Caldwell, depending on which identity he was using, has been running a sophisticated real estate fraud scheme. He married Ms. Beckett under a false identity purchased through illegal channels. Dark web, most likely. He used her credit and employment history to secure loans on the Temecula property. He pointed to another stack. He used Mrs. Lawson's, Camilla's, legitimate identity and credit history to purchase your Moreno Valley home and secure additional lines of credit. The San Diego condo was purchased through a third party we're still investigating. A third party? I felt sick. There's a third woman? Girlfriend, not wife, Detective Foster clarified, like that made it better. She's been cooperating with our investigation. Apparently, your husband was in the process of proposing when Ms. Beckett's private investigator uncovered the fraud. Karina snorted. "Yeah, I hired an investigator about 2 months ago because Jason kept disappearing for days at a time. Told me he was visiting his sick mother in Arizona. Turns out his sick mother was actually you. She looked at me apologetically. No offense. None taken. I'm too busy having an existential crisis to be offended. Detective Ramirez continued. The properties were used as collateral for additional loans. Mr. Lawson would take out home equity lines of credit, drain the accounts, and move the money through various shell accounts. We've traced approximately $340,000 in fraudulent transactions over the past 18 months. The number hung in the air like a dead body. $340,000. Where's the money? Karina's voice was sharp, angry. If he stole that much, where is it? We're still investigating. He had multiple bank accounts, some overseas. We've frozen what we could find, but... Detective Ramirez shrugged. Real estate fraud is complicated. Recovery is uncertain. I thought about our Wells Fargo account. The missing $5,000 that had seemed like such a big deal yesterday morning. It was pocket change compared to this. So what happens now? I asked. Your husband is being charged with loan fraud, identity theft, bigamy, and several related offenses. He's looking at significant prison time. 5 to 10 years, minimum. Good. I hoped they'd throw away the key, then throw away the jail. Karina and I sat there in that depressing interview room, two women who'd been married to the same man without knowing the other existed, staring at evidence of his crimes spread across a metal table. After a moment, she reached across and grabbed my hand. Her grip was strong, solid, the grip of someone who'd decided she wasn't going down without a fight. You want to get coffee after this? She asked. I feel like we have a lot to talk about. I squeezed back. Only if it's stronger than coffee, like battery acid or straight bleach. She smiled. First real smile I'd seen from her. I know a Denny's nearby. Their coffee tastes like regret and broken dreams. Perfect. That's exactly my aesthetic right now. The Denny's on University Avenue smelled like maple syrup, desperation, and questionable life choices being made at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. Perfect atmosphere for discovering your entire marriage was a lie. Karina and I sat in a booth with cracked vinyl seats, surrounded by truckers and college kids who looked like they'd made even worse decisions than we had. She ordered coffee. I ordered coffee. We both stared at the laminated menus like they contained answers to questions we hadn't figured out how to ask yet. So, Karina said after the waitress. Name tag read Donna, looked like she'd seen everything twice. Dropped off our cups. Insurance salesman? Insurance salesman, I confirmed. You? Same. Atlas Insurance Solutions. Traveled constantly for client meetings, conferences, training seminars. She laughed bitterly. I actually Googled the company once. It exists. He really worked there. That's what made it so believable. My stomach dropped. Wait, he worked there? Like, actually? Part-time. Enough to maintain the cover story. Enough to explain the paychecks. Karina dumped 3 sugar packets into her coffee. The rest of the time, he was apparently running a criminal enterprise and maintaining multiple households like it was a hobby. I thought about all those nights Mason came home smelling like hotel soap, complaining about difficult clients and boring seminars, the Marriott rewards points he'd accumulated, the business cards in his wallet. It had all been real enough to be convincing. How did you figure it out? I asked. What made you suspicious? Karina stirred her coffee violently, like she was punishing it. Little things. He'd forget which stories he'd told me. Called me by the wrong name twice. Once he said Camilla, and then covered by saying it was a client. His phone was always face down. He had 2 gym memberships, which seemed weird because he only went to one. And the money thing. The money thing? Cash withdrawals. Every Friday. $500. She looked up. You too? My blood went cold. Every Friday for 10 weeks. I noticed it Tuesday morning right before he disappeared. I noticed it about 2 months ago. That's when I hired a private investigator named Marcus Webb. She pulled out her phone, started scrolling. Cost me $12,000 total that I put on 3 different credit cards because I didn't want Jason, Mason, whatever, to see it on our joint account. Worth every penny. $12,000. That was serious money. Serious suspicion. Marcus followed him for 5 weeks. Karina continued, showing me a detailed report on her phone. Got pictures of him at your house, at the San Diego condo, meeting with the girlfriend. Documented everything. License plates, timestamps, locations. He was thorough. She showed me a photo. Mason, my Mason, kissing a blonde woman outside a Starbucks in Pacific Beach. The timestamp was from 3 weeks ago, Thursday afternoon. The day he'd told me he was at a retirement planning seminar in Ontario. That's Sienna, Karina said flatly. 28, works at a yoga studio, drives a Prius she thinks he helped her buy. Spoiler? She bought it herself with a loan he took out in her name using a fake pay stub. I stared at the photo until my eyes burned. How are we this stupid? We're not stupid. We're trusting. There's a difference. Karina took a long drink of terrible Denny's coffee. Marcus gave me his final report 3 weeks ago. I went straight to the police that same day. Turns out they'd already been investigating Mason for loan fraud. Someone at one of the banks got suspicious about multiple applications with similar information. When I showed up with evidence of bigamy and identity theft, they fast-tracked the whole thing. Arrested him Tuesday night trying to cross into Mexico. The note he left me said I'd understand everything by Wednesday. Yeah, because he thought he'd be back by then. He was going to Tijuana to move money into an offshore account. Probably would have come home Wednesday night with some story about a last-minute work emergency, and you'd never have known. She paused. If I hadn't hired Marcus, if the bank hadn't gotten suspicious, he might have gotten away with it. We sat there in silence, processing the sheer audacity of Mason's con. The waitress came back. We ordered Grand Slam breakfast because nothing says my life is falling apart like pancakes at 2 p.m. So what now? I asked. The detective said recovery is uncertain. What does that even mean? Karina's expression hardened. It means we need a lawyer, not just any lawyer. We need someone who specializes in cases like this. Someone who enjoys destroying men who think they're clever. You already have someone in mind, don't you? She smiled. It was the kind of smile that probably made Mason nervous back when he was still pretending to be Jason. Lorraine Huxley, family law specialist, handles fraud cases, has a reputation for being absolutely ruthless. She got my friend's ex-husband for hiding assets in a cryptocurrency scheme. The man thought he was untouchable. Lorraine found every penny. How much does she cost? $450 an hour. I choked on my coffee. I don't have that kind of money. Mason drained our accounts, remember? We pool resources, split the cost. Use her for both our cases. Karina leaned forward. Think about it. We're both married to him. Technically. That makes us both victims. If we coordinate our divorces, our fraud claims, everything, we have twice the ammunition. It was crazy. Completely insane. Teaming up with my husband's other wife to destroy him legally. I loved it. When can we meet her? Karina was already dialing. Lorraine, it's Karina Beckett. Remember that case I mentioned? It got more interesting. I'm sitting here with the other wife. Pause. Yes, the other wife. Can you see us today? Another pause. Perfect. We'll be there in 45 minutes. She hung up. We're meeting her at 4 o'clock. Her office is in downtown Riverside. Our food arrived. We ate pancakes and plotted revenge like it was the most natural thing in the world. Karina showed me more photos from Marcus's investigation. Mason at the Temecula apartment, carrying groceries like a suburban husband. Mason at our Moreno Valley house, also doing domestic chores. The man had been maintaining 2 complete households across 3 cities. The Dodge Ram, I said suddenly. He told me he bought it for work. Said it was a cash deal. Some great discount he got through a client. Karina's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Cash? That's rich. Why? Because the silver Dodge Ram with the crew cab is registered in my name, and I've been making 487 monthly payments for the past 18 months. Her voice was ice. He financed it using my credit, my employment information, forged my signatures on the loan documents, then told you he bought it cash so you wouldn't wonder why you never saw payments. We stared at each other across our half-eaten Grand Slams. I want that truck, we said simultaneously. By the time we finished eating, we'd compared every detail of our Mason experiences. Same restaurants. He'd taken us both to Romano's Macaroni Grill for anniversaries. Ordered the same pasta dish both times. Same vacation excuses. Told Karina his mother was sick in Arizona. Told me his college buddy needed help moving in Phoenix. Same lies about his phone dying. About late meetings. About surprise work trips. He'd even recycled date ideas. Karina mentioned a sunset picnic at Lake Paris he'd organized for their 3rd anniversary. Mason had taken me to the exact same spot for our 4th anniversary, complete with the same Whole Foods cheese plate and the same Spotify playlist. At least we know he's consistently unoriginal, I muttered, and consistently a lying piece of work. Karina paid for her half of the meal. Come on, let's go meet Lorraine. I have a feeling she's going to love this case. We walked out of Denny's into the bright California afternoon. 2 strangers who'd become accidental allies in the stupidest war either of us had ever fought. Somewhere in a holding cell downtown, Mason was probably starting to realize that his carefully constructed double life had collapsed like a house of cards. And we were about to show him what happens when you underestimate your wives. Both of them. Lorraine Huxley's office was located in a brick building downtown that screamed, "I charge enough to afford this view." Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Mahogany desk that probably cost more than my car. Diplomas covering one wall like trophies from her war on terrible husbands. Lorraine herself was 52, silver hair cut in a sharp bob, wearing a charcoal suit that meant business. She looked like someone who'd fire you, take your parking spot, and win the lawsuit you filed about it. I loved her immediately. "So," she said, settling behind that magnificent desk, "bigamy and real estate fraud. My favorite combination." She smiled like a shark that had just spotted wounded prey. "Tell me everything." Karina and I spent 45 minutes laying out the whole mess. The 2 marriages, the fake identity, the 3 properties, the $340,000 in fraudulent loans. The 3rd girlfriend who'd almost become wife number 3. Lorraine took notes in handwriting so precise it looked like a font, occasionally asking questions that made me realize she was 3 steps ahead of us. "Here's what we're dealing with," Lorraine said finally, leaning back in her leather chair. "California is a community property state. Everything acquired during marriage belongs equally to both spouses. Even debts. Even fraudulent debts." My stomach sank. "So we're responsible for his crimes? Legally? It's complicated. But here's the beautiful part." Lorraine's smile widened. "Because you were both married to him when these crimes occurred, and neither of you knew about the fraud, you can petition the court to set aside the community property presumption. You're victims, not accomplices." "What does that actually mean?" Karina asked. "It means we go nuclear." Lorraine pulled out a legal pad, started writing. "First, we file emergency motions to freeze all assets connected to Mason/Jason, the Moreno Valley house, the Temecula property, the San Diego condo, any vehicles registered in his name or yours, bank accounts, investment accounts, his Wells Fargo checking, his secret Bank of America savings, that cryptocurrency wallet Marcus found, everything." "Wait, cryptocurrency wallet?" Karina nodded. "Marcus discovered it during his investigation. Mason had about $47,000 in Bitcoin. Thought he was being clever. We freeze that too," Lorraine continued. "Then we file for divorce, both of you simultaneously. We coordinate the filings so they hit the same day. Maximum chaos for Mason, maximum leverage for us." "Can we do that?" I asked. "File at the same time?" "Absolutely. In fact, it's brilliant strategy. His lawyer will have to defend 2 divorces simultaneously, both involving fraud claims. It'll cost him a fortune in legal fees alone. Meanwhile, we're splitting one attorney's cost between 2 clients." The math suddenly made sense. Lorraine at $450 an hour, divided by 2. Still expensive, but manageable, especially compared to what Mason was about to face. "What about the criminal charges?" Karina asked. "That's separate but useful. The DA is prosecuting loan fraud, identity theft, and bigamy. If he's convicted, and he will be, the evidence is overwhelming. He's looking at 5 to 10 years in state prison. That conviction helps our civil cases enormously." Lorraine made more notes. "We'll also file civil suits for fraud, emotional distress, and misappropriation of marital assets. Sue him for everything. But what if there's no money left?" I thought about those weekly $500 withdrawals, the drained accounts, the offshore transfers. Lorraine's expression turned predatory. "Then we seize the assets we can find. The properties will be sold. Proceeds divided between you 2 after debts are paid." "That Dodge Ram Karina's been making payments on?" We reclaim it, sell it, she gets the money. The jet ski Marcus found registered at a Lake Havasu marina? Seized and sold. That boat he bought with Karina's credit card? Same thing. Wait, boat? There's a boat? Karina looked surprised too. I didn't know about a boat. Lorraine checked her notes. According to the financial records Detective Ramirez sent over, Mason purchased a used fishing boat 8 months ago, 23-foot Sea Ray, financed through a marine loan using Karina's employment information and forged signatures. It's docked at Lake Havasu under the name Jason Caldwell. Karina's face went through about 17 emotions, landing on rage. I've never even been to Lake Havasu. Well, you own a boat there. Congratulations. Lorraine's sarcasm was chef's kiss. We'll add it to the asset seizure list. Everything gets liquidated. Every penny goes toward compensating you two for the financial and emotional damage he caused. Over the next hour, Lorraine walked us through her strategy. It was ruthless, thorough, and absolutely beautiful. She'd already contacted a forensic accountant to trace every dollar Mason had stolen or hidden. She had connections with a real estate attorney to handle the property seizures. She even knew a PR person who specialized in high-profile fraud cases, in case media attention helped pressure Mason's family, who apparently had money, into settling faster. What about his job? I asked. He still works at Atlas Insurance Solutions. Part-time, but still. Not anymore, he doesn't. Lorraine showed us an email on her laptop. I contacted their HR department this morning after Karina called me. Informed them one of their agents had been arrested for felony fraud and bigamy. They terminated him immediately. Liability issue. Good. I hoped they'd burned his employee parking spot for good measure. When does this all start? Karina asked. Tomorrow morning. I'm filing emergency motions at 9 a.m. By noon, every asset will be frozen. By end of business Friday, divorce papers will be served. Both sets, same day. Lorraine smiled. Mason's going to have a very educational week. We signed retainer agreements, $5,000 each, which I put on a credit card because my checking account was still pathetically empty. Lorraine assured us we'd recover far more than that once assets were liquidated. I chose to believe her because the alternative was crying into my overpriced Denny's pancakes. Thursday morning, I woke up in my house, my future former house, and checked my email obsessively. At 10:47 a.m., Lorraine sent an update. All motions granted. Assets frozen. Mason's attorney tried to object. Judge laughed at him. Literally laughed. By Friday afternoon, Karina and I were back in Lorraine's office reviewing the service confirmations. Mason had been served with divorce papers from me at 2 p.m. in his holding cell. Served with divorce papers from Karina at 2:07 p.m. in the same holding cell. According to the process server, a woman named Rita who'd been doing this job for 30 years, Mason had turned an interesting shade of gray upon receiving the second set. He actually said, "Wait, both of them," Rita had reported to Lorraine, who'd reported to us with visible glee. Like he thought maybe one of you wouldn't figure it out. The asset freeze was comprehensive and devastating. The Moreno Valley house, appraised at $385,000 with $220,000 remaining on the mortgage. The Temecula property, worth $410,000 with $195,000 owed. The San Diego condo, $290,000 value, $178,000 mortgage. The Dodge Ram, the jet ski, the mysterious Lake Havasu boat, even the furniture Mason had bought with fraudulent credit cards. All frozen pending liquidation. His bank accounts? Seized. His cryptocurrency wallet? Frozen by court order, with the private keys surrendered to the forensic accountant. His 401k from Atlas Insurance? Frozen. Even his season tickets to the Padres games, which neither Karina nor I knew existed, were seized as marital assets. Mason had thought he was building an empire. Turned out he was building his own financial funeral pyre, and Lorraine had just handed us the matches. Next week, we start depositions, Lorraine said, clearly enjoying herself. Mason's family, his employer, his friends. We're going to expose every lie he told, document every crime he committed, and make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person he is. Karina raised her terrible office coffee. We'd upgraded from Denny's, but not by much. To Mason. May he enjoy his minimalist lifestyle in prison. I clinked my cup against hers. And may his cellmate snore. Mason pleaded guilty 6 months later. His attorney, some overpriced guy from Orange County who probably regretted taking the case, had advised him that going to trial with 2 ex-wives, a mountain of documentary evidence, and Lorraine Huxley on the prosecution's witness list was essentially volunteering for public execution. Mason took the plea deal. 5 years in California State Prison, full restitution to victims, permanent fraud conviction on his record. The sentencing hearing was almost anticlimactic. Mason stood there in an orange jumpsuit that clashed with his complexion, looking like someone had deflated him. No more cocky insurance salesman smile, no more confident swagger, just a middle-aged man realizing he'd destroyed 3 women's lives and his own future for money he didn't even get to keep. The judge, a woman in her 60s who looked like she'd heard every excuse humanity could invent, was not impressed. "Mr. Lawson, you conducted a sophisticated fraud scheme that demonstrated planning, deception, and a complete disregard for the law and the people you claim to love. 5 years is lenient. I hope you use that time to consider the consequences of your actions." Mason mumbled something about being sorry. The judge wasn't interested. Karina and I sat in the back of the courtroom, watching our mutual ex-husband get led away in handcuffs. We didn't celebrate, didn't cheer. Just sat there feeling something between satisfaction and exhaustion. "You want to get lunch?" Karina asked as we walked out into the courthouse plaza. "Only if it's not Denny's. I can't handle those pancakes again." We went to a sushi place downtown instead. Started becoming an actual friendship instead of just a trauma bond. Turned out Karina was hilarious, loved the same terrible reality TV shows I did, and made excellent life choices in every area except husbands. The asset liquidation took 8 months total. Lorraine's forensic accountant, a terrifyingly competent woman named Patricia, who found money in places I didn't know existed, traced every dollar Mason had hidden. The properties sold fast. California real estate waits for no one. The final accounting was sobering. Between the 3 properties, we had roughly $492,000 in equity. Add the Dodge Ram, the jet ski, that ridiculous Lake Havasu boat, Mason's Bitcoin wallet, his drained 401k, and some other assets, and the total came to around $637,000. Sounds like a lot, right? Here's where it got painful. Lorraine's legal fees, 8 months of depositions, court filings, and absolutely destroying Mason's defense, totaled $87,000. Patricia, the forensic accountant, charged $31,000 for tracking every fraudulent transaction across multiple countries. Real estate agents took their 6% commission on the property sales, which was $65,000. Title insurance, escrow fees, transfer taxes, and closing costs added another $11,000. Court fees, process servers, document filing, expert witnesses, another $12,000. But the real gut punch, the $285,000 in fraudulent debts Mason had created using our names, our credit, our forged signatures, credit cards maxed out for his boat, personal loans for the jet ski, home equity lines he'd opened and drained. In California's community property system, we were legally responsible for debts incurred during marriage, even fraudulent ones. Lorraine fought like hell to get some of those debts discharged. But courts are courts. We had to pay $285,000 to various creditors just to clear our names. Do the math. $637,000 in assets minus $491,000 in fees and debts equals $146,000 left. Split between Karina and me, $73,000 each. Not life-changing money, but enough to start over. Enough to build emergency funds, pay off the credit cards we'd used to hire Lorraine, and breathe again. I sold the Moreno Valley house, too many memories of a life that had been a lie, and moved to a smaller apartment in downtown Riverside. Started therapy, got a promotion at work, adopted a cat named Justice because I'm exactly that petty. Karina kept the Temecula apartment, refinanced it in her name only, and turned the spare bedroom into a home office. Started taking online classes for dental practice management. Got a Pomeranian named Karma. We had drinks every Friday at TGI Fridays. The one on Tyler Street with the enthusiastic bartender who knew our order by heart. Became tradition. 2 women who'd been accidentally married to the same man, laughing over loaded potato skins about the absurdity of it all. But the universe wasn't done with its ironic justice yet. 3 months after Mason's sentencing, A true crime podcast producer named Derek Mitchell contacted us through Lorraine. He'd found our case through public court records and wanted to do a series about it. The Insurance Fraud Husband. 8 episodes exploring how Mason had constructed his double life, the investigation, and the legal aftermath. Karina and I discussed it over our Friday drinks. Decided we had nothing to hide and everything to gain from telling our story. Plus, the contract included royalty payments. The podcast launched 6 months later. Went viral immediately. Turns out people love stories about terrible husbands getting destroyed by competent women in California community property law. We did interviews, answered listener questions, even got recognized occasionally at Target. The royalties? Split 50-50 between Karina and me. Not enough to quit our jobs, but enough for nice vacations and upgraded apartments, and the satisfaction of knowing Mason's stupidity was literally paying us. Mason, meanwhile, was learning valuable life lessons in prison, like how insurance fraud doesn't impress anyone in the yard, like how having 2 ex-wives who publicly destroyed you makes you the punchline of every cell block joke, like how 5 years is a very long time when you're known as that idiot who got caught because his wife hired a PI. Last Friday, Karina and I were at our usual TGI Fridays booth, splitting loaded nachos and laughing about the latest podcast review. Someone had called our story better than fiction and more satisfying than therapy when she raised her strawberry margarita. To Mason, she said, with that sharp smile I'd grown to love. May he enjoy his minimalist lifestyle, his thrilling prison library job, and the knowledge that his criminal master plan mostly just funded our happy hours. I clinked my glass against hers. And may he have learned that insurance doesn't cover karma. That's a pre-existing condition. We laughed, ordered more nachos, made plans for next week. Because here's what Mason never understood. You can steal money, fake identities, and juggle multiple lives, but you can't build anything real on lies. Eventually, the foundation cracks. And if you're really unlucky, both your wives become best friends and hire the same attorney. Turns out the best revenge isn't a dish served cold. It's a podcast served to millions, with royalty checks deposited bi-monthly. Cheers to that.